happy to discuss any of those topics as once I finish, as we normally do. The first thing I needed to mention is I wanted to say thank you to all of the folks in our town that have sent in countless letters, emails, cards. I even had a couple gift cards that I'm going to have to probably send back because of our policy on gratuities. And then, of course, food. There's been a constant level of cupcakes and cookies and various items of food that have been brought into our lobby, and without any question, just showing a tremendous amount of support for their police department. So despite what's been going on throughout the nation, those small sentiments are much appreciated. So anybody who's watching, thank you very much for that. The second thing is, due to the tragic events that have occurred throughout the country and the discussion about police reform, I can get right into the governor's order. Governor Cuomo signed an executive order not long ago entitled Police Reform, and it's quite extensive in that it does call for groups to meet, community groups to meet, and it also specifically names a number of individuals or stakeholders that should be involved in that meeting. And I'm fully in favor of that. You know, 2 years ago when I first started, 2.5 years ago, I guess close to 3 years now, when I first started, I formed a similar group, and I selected town residents that were representative of the town, people from the north, people from the south, people from the middle Fayetteville area. And we had a group of 19 or 20 people, and we sat down at the table and asked them basic and simple questions. First question was, you want to keep your police department? Second question was, if the answer to that is yes, how do you want to see your police department in 5 years? The results of that committee or group, community group that we formed 3 years ago, close to 3 years ago, was a resounding yes. They wanted to keep the police. And we had some really great input from all the members specific to those areas of the town. Again, north, south, center, central. And I was intended to take all those suggestions and other suggestions from our own members and write a strategic plan, or what we call in the accreditation world, a 5-year plan.
What?
Scott, you got to mute. There you go, bud. So we're going to put together the strategic plan or a 5-year plan for the police department, just so we had some real good direction on where we're going to bring the police department as far as existence, services, everything was considered during this group. But it's kind of similar to what the governor wants to do right now, and I'm happy to meet with any group under any capacity to discuss how we can improve. You know, as the police committee, we have one heck of a police department, but there's always room for improvement. And I'm always open to ideas and suggestions and recommendations on how we can improve as an organization. I'm certainly not opposed to that. Deputy Supervisor Green mentioned the intermunicipal agreement. It has been in existence for 35 years. And I think it's worked pretty good. Not that I've been around for that long, even though I got a lot of gray hair now. Really the intermunicipal agreement and the consolidation of the 3 village police departments with the brand new formed town of Manlius Police Department was the only successful, I say successful, police consolidation in Onondaga County. If you remember the history going back several years ago, there was a number of agencies that attempted to merge their police departments, and they all broke apart. The mergers just didn't work. It all came down to the services that a local police department must provide to their service group. So I'm real proud of our intermunicipal agreement because, like I said, 35 years old and the only successful merger, that's doing pretty good. But going back to sort of the historical perspective of the intermunicipal agreement, back then the village mayors were very particular about their police departments. They liked having local services. They liked having their cars patrolling the streets within the villages. And as such, when this intermunicipal agreement was formulated, it gave a ton of power essentially to the villages, to include voting power. And that was done, from what I'm told from a historical perspective, is because the villages liked the idea of a consolidation, but they did not like the idea of losing a voice in how their streets would be policed. And the folks from the village, you know that each and every one of our villages has a unique interest in what they would like to see from the police. And we listen to those interests. And that's really the reason why we have this police committee, because we meet on a regular basis and have done so for a number of years. And each and one of those individual community concerns comes forward. And even though it's sometimes difficult, we as an organization, as a police department, make every single effort to try to address those concerns. And quite frankly, the village governments, you are the voice of the people. So when we meet like this, or when we have numerous conversations, whether if it's one of the mayors calling me, or me calling one of the mayors or one of the trustees, or we meet at another series of meetings that we all go to, you know, there's always this dialogue back and forth. I think that's the beauty of this. And, you know, the voice of the people is heard in the elected officials of those particular villages. And then lastly, Councilor Elaine, I understand one of the things you mentioned about a citizen review board. Again, another idea I would not be opposed to. But in my perspective, just my opinion really, is that that could be something that would be established, but I would think that would be separate from the police committee only because of the voting issue. Technically, if civilians were added to the police committee, the villages would lose votes. That's just my opinion. So that's really all I had on the governor's executive order. Oh, I'm sorry. I had been contacted by our district attorney, William Fitzpatrick, and he has created a proposal in that instead of having 20 different committees all throughout Onondaga County, he's proposing to have one committee that would first meet and discuss the issues with all of the stakeholders. And after we sort of establish a plan, if you will, or a plan of approach or something to that nature, then we would break out into subcommittees, and those subcommittees would be the ability for individual communities throughout Onondaga County to voice their concerns and to present any kind of ideas or suggestions. And then once all of those subcommittees meet with their individual communities, they could bring those concerns or suggestions or ideas back to the main committee. And this would be a process that would be similar to what the DA did with the school task force when we were facing a number of school shootings throughout the country. Another tragic number of events that prompted change. So as much as some of these things are tragic, they do prompt change, which is great. Change for the better. So the only thing I don't agree with the DA's plan, and I have not had a chance to talk with the DA yet, but I did talk to the sheriff of Onondaga County, is I think he wanted to kind of lump these subcommittees into multiple, or not multiple groups, but almost like quadrants. And we were lumped up with DeWitt. And I'm not really in favor of that, only because I think that our unique needs in the town of Manlius are much different than that of the town of DeWitt. And that's not a knock on the town of DeWitt Police Department. They're a great police department, but our needs are much more unique and need to be directly addressed. So that would be my only suggestion. That will be my suggestion. And I'm on that committee, the countywide committee. I'm on that because in addition to representing Manlius PD, I'm still the chair of the Onondaga County Chiefs Association. So I was invited to be a part of that committee group. Moving on to what's happening in the police department recently, we have on at least 2 occasions sent our officers into the city on mutual aid assistance, which is per the municipal law. We had to do that because they've made a cry for help, and we're never going to turn an agency down when it comes to mutual aid under those circumstances. The first night of the violent protest, we sent people, and then just last week when they had 9 people shot in the city, they were calling for help, and we did send people down. Our people didn't do anything other than hold the perimeter, and as soon as I knew that their services were no longer necessary, we pulled those bodies back to the town of Manlius. And we didn't leave the town of Manlius empty either. I think we sent 3 cars to the city to help, and we kept 4 cars in our town. So our people were not unprotected. So the villages and the town were doing good. Unfortunately, between those two events, we've spent in excess of $16,000 in overtime costs, especially that first night where we kind of did a full court press. We called a lot of people in. Going back to personnel, right now, unfortunately, we're down 4 police officers. We do have 1 police officer that we offered a job to, and he should be coming to us, but I think it's going to be another week before his availability begins. So really that brings us down to 3 once he comes back. But in addition to those 3 that we're currently down, I did accept a letter of resignation from 1 officer. I accepted a second letter of pending resignation from a 2nd officer who's due to retire. And I also have a pending email from one of our sergeants that's also looking to retire. So we could potentially be down 6 people, and that doesn't include the new hire in a real short period of time here. Lastly is training. We, of course, as I reported in our last committee meeting, we suspended our training due to the COVID, the virus, and we didn't want to overexpose our folks. But now that we're into phase 3 or 4, we're going to resume our training. Actually, we did resume our training. We did firearms qualifications this month, and we're going to continue that training next month with the various topics that we missed over the summer. Typically, we take the summer off because of vacations and the increased volume of calls and things like that. But we have to do the training. It's a requirement through our CLIA accreditation process. So that's the end of my report.
Chief, I have a quick, the accreditation is coming up this year. Is it 2020 again? It's a 5-year accreditation?
Yes.
Yeah.
We actually have a couple coming up. We're accredited by both New York State as well as the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. New York State does their on-site assessments every 5 years, and CLIA used to do them every 3 years, but now they've moved it to every 4 years. But with the CLIA process, in addition to an actual on-site meeting every 4 years, they check a percentage of our records on an annual basis. So really we're being continually assessed either remotely or an actual on-site assessment. But you're right, both of those are coming up. I think CLIA is first at the latter part of this year. I'm hoping that we'll get a group of assessors that will come in and take a look at everything that we do for that independent and objective review process. And then I think in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, the state on-site will come in, and hopefully we'll be past the virus and we'll be doing that. I just did an assessment for CLIA. I work part-time for CLIA. I take vacation time off at the police department. I do part-time work for CLIA just so I'm plugged into the best practices. And I just did one remotely. It was weird. I didn't like doing it remotely, kind of like these meetings, but we got through it. Good agency up in Illinois.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm concerned about being down the officers. I'm hearing from all the organizations, the sheriffs, the state troopers, that entrance to the academies are very limited. You're just not getting the students going in to that. When will the next academy be running, Chief? Will it be this fall, do you think, or?
That's a hard question to answer, only because we use 3 different academies. Unfortunately, even though Onondaga is a fairly well organized county, we used to have an Onondaga Academy, and we relied on that. We've kind of lost that. I mean, the city does their own academy, county does their own academy because they combine county and or police with the jail. So they have limited numbers because when they hire people, they're hiring 40, 50 at a time. So recently we've reached out to Broome County Sheriff, who runs an academy, and our people have the choice to either commute to Broome County or they can reside there. But both Broome County and Mohawk Valley Community College is another resource that we use. Neither one of them are residential academies, so they have to either commute or they get an apartment on site, or like I said, just commute back.
Yeah.
but you're right about testing. We recently canvassed, I think it was 133 people that were on the civil service list to find out who was interested in a police position at Manlius PD. And after our selection process is pretty strict, not unreasonable, but pretty strict. And of those 130 some odd people we canvassed, we found 0 that fit our criteria. So it's getting difficult.
Yeah.
So can I ask the question?
Sure.
On that list, how do we encourage more people to apply or to understand how to get on that list? And
the list is advertised and controlled exclusively by Onondaga County personnel. And we have links to county personnel announcing the list on our website. In addition to that, we put out pamphlets and postings throughout various areas in the town to try to attract more folks to sign up. But it's unfortunate that we don't have a lot of control over the process, because county personnel does have almost exclusive control as far as attracting candidates. And then, of course, they're following the rules of civil service, which is established by New York State. So we do recruiting. One of the things that we've done in the past, and I'm encouraging our people to do more of it, is we'll visit job fairs, colleges, other groups. We go to the library sometimes just to try to get our name out there and attract folks in that way. But really, they still have to take the test, pass the test, before we can even consider them. And even if they're on the list, by civil service rule, we have to start at the top of the list and work our way down. It's quite the process.
Chief, I have a question. Is it possible to recruit from other states or even outside of Central New York?
It's possible, but New York State Division of Criminal Justice Service doesn't make it very easy. For whatever reason, New York State DCJS are the folks that are responsible for determining if they've already been trained, what type of credentials they have. And many times, if they're coming from down south, for instance, or somewhere, even West Coast, because the best policing really is East Coast, West Coast, or Northeast and West Coast. But DCJS makes it very difficult to match those credentials to New York credentials. So many times, without jumping through a whole bunch of hoops, a lot of these folks, if they do decide to move to our area and seek employment, they have to basically go through a whole brand new academy again.
Chief, I got a question for you. With these 4 officers that we have leaving, is it due to the fact that they are getting close to retirement and that's what's going on, or has it got a lot to do with, unfortunately, the situation that this country's in right now that's making a lot of people decide whether they feel they need to be in law enforcement right now by feeling unappreciative of what they do?
Well, that's a great question, John. I can tell you that 2 of the 3 that are leaving that I'm aware of are due to retire. In New York State, we have a 20-year retirement program, and a lot of times it doesn't make sense for some of these folks to stick around after 20 because they can receive those retirement benefits at the 20-year mark. One is resigned because he's moving to another agency in Onondaga County. As far as their ideas on getting out of law enforcement due to the current environment, that's hard to say. I can tell you, though, that I had a pretty serious conversation with another employee today, and that's exactly what was on this employee's mind. So it's difficult to say. We do an exit interview. I do an exit interview with every employee that leaves, whether if they transfer or retire, and that gives me an opportunity to discuss, with them what they see that's good, and most importantly, what they see is bad. And then I take those exit interviews very, very seriously, because they don't have much to lose when they're walking out the door, right? So they can be open and frank with me. They can be open and frank with me anyways, but people feel more free to discuss those things when they're leaving. So I'll be doing exit interviews with all these employees to find out what we're doing good and what we can fix.
Well, I want to thank you for the great job that you and the town has done. Your officers have been great.
Thank you very much. I'll pass that on. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can I go back to your comment that you had 130 people you reviewed and none of them met the criteria? What specifically are they falling short in? I mean, what separates you from a similar agency in the county or a sheriff or, you know, city?
Well, that's a hard question because our selection process is quite extensive, but I can tell you it's not just TMPD that is having a hard time hiring. This is a countrywide, it's a national problem. I'm hearing it when I travel with Khalil all over the state. I'm hearing the same issues. Not a lot of people are attracted to law enforcement. And unfortunately, in our most recent round of canvas letters, the folks that were attracted just didn't have the qualifications, whether if it's education or a criminal background. There's a lot of automatic disqualifiers, and our standards, like I said, our standards are strict because I don't want just anybody in a TMPD uniform. I want a certain individual in that uniform that represents our mission, and our values, and they're out there. It's just more difficult to reach those folks. And in this last round, it was we had some people that were interested, but when they came in for the first phase of interviews, they failed for one reason or another. We have a list, it's a short list really, of automatic disqualifiers and then other things that we need to consider that we know it's just not going to get them through the process.
You know, too, Chief, I think your Citizens Police Academy, I always advocate for this, but anyone that has the opportunity and you're able to participate in it, I know you probably can't hold it again this fall, but it's just a wonderful 6-week program to learn exactly about the hiring process, what the town of Manlius Police Department demands in their personnel. And, you know, you really feel good to know you're getting the best of the best. And I would encourage anyone that has the opportunity to take advantage of that. I hate to bring this up, but what about the renovations?
We're getting close.
To what?
At the end of July, at the very end of July, the trailer will be delivered, and the work on our side of the building is scheduled to begin August 1st. There has been a lot of work already on our side of the building, but we're into the summer months now, so the air conditioners are still working, and everything seems to be working. But the trailers will arrive at the end of July, and we'll be moving in phases into the trailer while the majority of the work is being done on our side of the building. So it's getting close. It's going to be interesting when we move, because I'm going to have to move a fair number of people from their office environment into this temporary trailer for a 3-month period. So it'll be challenging.
Do you need any extra help for that, Chief, the move? Are you?
The village has been really supportive, and they indicated that if we couldn't do it on our own with our own employees, that they would they'd be glad to assist us. They've been really good in that regard.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chief. And as you know, we really appreciate everything the department's done, especially in these last few weeks. Captain Schaefer did another great job with the CRC committee. And it was a nice opportunity to hear from all the other agencies. I was particularly impressed with the Office of Emergency Management and the long hours that they have put in ever since this pandemic started, and they're still going on. So it was, even though it was by Zoom, there were a lot of participants, and it was great to have him be able to put that together. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I tell you, Commissioner Wares from the Office of Emergency Management and his group of people did an outstanding job through COVID. They were given daily updates. When I would call the commissioner, he always wouldn't be able to answer the phone, but he would call me back, or he'd have somebody call me back with specific questions. And couldn't ask for a better group of people.
Well, I hope it's a quiet summer. We'll see. It's going too fast. Anything else for the chief?
Chief, thanks for taking care of some of those traffic issues we had, and certainly over by the construction zone. I know Pat really appreciated it, so thanks for taking care of that.
Our pleasure.
And correspondence. Allison, did you have anything?
Yes, we do have the letter from Mr. Boyd, and I know that you were going to discuss that. And then I just also wanted to say that one of the attendees in the room, Jim Brule, had submitted a letter, I believe in reference to the Citizens Committee, saying that he would, he lives in the village of Fayetteville, and that he would be interested in helping with that committee, and he can submit his and get more information on that. And then, and that is it so far for correspondence on my end.
So, all right, you have the information then. And I do have a copy of the letter from Mr. Boyd of North Street in Fayetteville. And he would like to address making the Manlius Police Department the General Orders Policy Manual public. And Chief, I think you've had some correspondence with him, but we'll look into his letter and correspond back. Anything else before we have the privilege of the floor?
Hey, Karen, you gonna bring up the letter from the mayor, or do we want to discuss that later?
The letter from the mayor.
The mayor sent a letter to you guys, to the chief and to the town supervisor regarding the incident on North Street.
We're gonna take that up in executive session.
Okay.
Tonight.
I just have a question about the the agreement. I don't know where we landed on that. Like, are we? I know that the supervisor is going to be talking about it, and the mayor's. But what about this committee? What do we feel should happen with that agreement? Does anyone have any opinions or thoughts?
Well, I think Elaine, we can all have our input and put our suggestions and thoughts down in an email, or have a conversation with the supervisor or the chief, or certainly me, and when the supervisor and the village mayors meet with the legal counsel, we can put it all together. And any municipal agreement will be drawn up, and then it would have to go through the village boards, then as well as the town board before it's finalized. Am I correct on that, Attorney Frutesky?
Yeah, anything would have to be finalized by the village and the town board. If we revamped the intermunicipal agreement, came to agreement on it, then all four parties would have to agree to that.
Okay, and then my other question is, with the executive order, does this committee want to do that work? Should we be doing that, or should I more bring to the town board that a separate committee should handle? I mean, I know that the county will have its own plan, and we'd be glad to make sure we're staying up to date on that, of course. But as you said, Town of Manlius is its own separate entity. So I know that the town board wants community input right from all our residents here, and we want to be very involved in that process to increase transparency and to make sure that community feels like they have a voice. So is that a place for here, or is it not?
Well, when it comes to the actual committee, this committee certainly is to give the villages a voice.
Okay.
To meet with the chief and to the town, Elaine. But I think, as the chief mentioned earlier, I mean, and this is my own opinion, which is very minute compared to everyone else, but we would certainly welcome conversation from anyone. And as the chief has reached out with the strategic plans he's been working on, you know, we can talk to the supervisor about how that can transpire.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we potentially would create a more citizen-led board to do that, or a committee to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, I mean, in the villages, we create subcommittees of residents all the time. And so they handle very specific issues. So we had a traffic committee at one point. They meet, they come together, they get community input, and then they give that input to the board and go from there. And that may be a great way to do this, where you can engage as many people as possible to advise in this committee. Maybe that's the different way to do it.
Well, I think too, Dennis, you know, that is what the district attorney has set forth on his agenda. He wants that to happen, certainly. So, and I agree with that.
But I do agree with Chief and Elaine that, you know, this community needs to talk amongst ourselves. You know, and certainly get input from the broader community, but Chief was right on, and I do agree with Elaine on that too. It's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilor Green, Mr. Boyd was asking for more clarification on what's going to happen with his request.
Well, you know, Allison, I just got that letter, so I know the supervisor will be addressing it on behalf of the town board. And the chief, I don't know if you were able to get a copy, but certainly we will be getting back to him.
Yeah, I can comment on it if you like. I'm not sure if it's a proper form or not, but like I said, I can comment if you like, but I believe I sent a 5-day letter out indicating that within a certain period we would be responding to it. It was
That's,
sort of
that's sufficient, Chief.
Yeah, okay.
We will follow the process of FOIL and get back to Mr.
Okay, thank you. Let's have the privilege of the floor. We'll go around. Mr. McGrew.
The only thing, you know, we canceled the 4th of July. We are having the chicken barbecue on Saturday still.
Oh, you are? Saturday?
Yes. Yeah, Saturday, the 4th. We're still having the chicken barbecue. And we're in planning stages of replacing the 4th with a fall festival in September. That's all I've got.
No fireworks for the 4th, though, right?
No, the fireworks are going to be in the fall festival, if we have it.
So pretty quiet in Manlius.
For the most part.
Trustee Champagne.
The only thing I got for the chief is I've had a couple more complaints about some same spots speeding down North Central Ave and a few of them over there on Costello Parkway. If you get a chance, you just want to send somebody over there, kind of slow everybody down for a little bit. That's all I got.
Yep, those are kind of hot spots that we try to address every year. I received a letter too from a no resident the other day about a specific street on her neighborhood, and I sent a car over there yesterday just to monitor. So we'll put that on the list.
Thank you.
Councilor Denton.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Okay. Dennis.
Chief, the Symphornia concert's on the 11th. jazz concert's the week after.
The 11th?
Yeah. You know, and it's still in Beard Park, and hopefully we'll be in phase 4 and we can have it. So, but certainly let everybody in your villages know, you know, be a great thing to kind of bring everybody together. It's a great event. Other than that, I have nothing else.
You were going to send me, you were going to send me something on that, right, Dennis? So I had specific.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I know it'll be nice to get out and enjoy. So we should be in phase 4 by then.
Fingers crossed. Karen brings the wine.
I will. And Chief, again, I just had, you know, my friends up there at the Land Trust on Sweet Road, and I know you've been monitoring that, but that seems to be continuing with a lot of activity and parked cars, and it's a beautiful place to go, and everyone wants to enjoy it, but it tends to be an issue too. So
yeah, the cars that run that area are familiar with it. They're trying to do the best they can with the parking issue, and we actually had a couple lost people in there, I think last week, and we've sent the drone.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so but they were found successfully.
Do you use the drone in there to find them? Can you do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a great platform to make some observations you otherwise wouldn't be able to do that. So.
Oh my goodness, that's interesting.
Karen, can I make a couple other points, please?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
When we talked about a committee of people from the community that Elaine brought up, and I really do think it's a good idea. But one other consideration that we might want to think about, there's two. One is to involve some of our police in that committee so that they can hear firsthand what is being said. They don't necessarily have to be there to contribute all the time, but I think they should be around to hear the raw comments being made. Two, I also think that I'm not sure how big a committee like that would be, but it might not be a bad idea for them to work with our police in maybe some ride-alongs and some of the things that you do, sort of like the citizens police stuff that you did. Just an idea, just that we can integrate them so that they can see what they do and how they interact and the kind of training they go through.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be a good idea.
I think that's a great idea.
If possible.
Plus, the community gets to know them on an individual basis too.
We would be happy to facilitate that. I'm open for all those suggestions. We do the Citizens Police Academy. We have 5 school resource officers in the schools. We constantly are having interactions at all these festivals. We have a ride-along program in the town of Manlius. Any kind of community policing event that you can think of, we participate. So any further suggestions, I'd be happy to entertain any of them.
All right, is there anything else before we have a motion to adjourn?
I thought we were going to executive session.
No, the town board is going to go into executive session tonight to discuss that letter. He was asking what the response was going to be, and they're going to discuss it in executive session.
Will you let us know what comes out of it? Because I know the mayor.
Of course, I'll let you. Yes, I'm sure the supervisor will be contacting the mayor.
Okay.
All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. And our next meeting hopefully will be really in person on August 26th. Right, Allison?
We have on the schedule, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Great to see you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Safe. We love our villages. Take care of them.
Bye-bye.